Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very, very accomplished professional from the world of branding from Virginia, USA, Melissa Simkins. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Ash, thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
Thank you. Melissa is the Chief Executive Officer of Velvet Suite. She's also the founder of the She Suite. She is the First Lady of Personal Branding, a C-suite advisor, and a board member. So, Melissa, let's talk about Velvet Suite and personal branding. Tell me about your venture and what was your motivation to start it?
Well, great question. You're taking me back about 16 years. I started the business 16 years ago. I am a classically trained marketer and had always had a passion, even from a child, with commercials and with the way persuasion happens through products and services, which ultimately led me to my career. Prior to launching my company, I was working in corporate America. So I spent some time at various companies. I was at Nationwide Insurance, Victoria's Secret, and Procter & Gamble. And after going through my own personal challenge, early on in my early 20s, I was dealt a blow of what life brings you, which is the unexpected and unplanned. And I had my first great job after grad school. And suddenly the gentleman that I was dating died playing basketball on a basketball court. He was 27, I was 24. So you got to understand, at that time, the world is your oyster. You're getting into this new job. You are finally working for the world's largest marketer. You know, everything is great. And it really caused me to take pause and reflect and really assess what is my next move. And also, what are my unique talents and skills? And so that really became a journey for me. And after about 4 or 5 years, I recognized that entrepreneurship was going to be the way. But it was because of that experience, Ash, that I really recognized what I wanted to do with my business. And my business was going to be focused on purpose and helping people discover their why as the way to lead and to live. And so that became the kind of the cornerstone of Velvet Suite, focused on purpose-driven leadership and helping organizations tap into the next generation of talent in an unexpected way. And that became Velvet Suite. And then about 10 years after that, recognized we have an opportunity specifically for women, as you're talking about leadership in the corporate world. And the She Suite, as a sister platform, was birthed from that opportunity.
Amazing, amazing. So, as the First Lady of Personal Branding, let me start by asking you a very basic question for our viewers and listeners. What is personal branding?
There's a lot of definitions. I'm sure people have their perceptions of what it is. It's likes, it's Twitter followers, it's, having a good reputation. We define at Velvet Suite personal brand as the promise and perception of lifetime value. So if I look at in the United States, a dollar or money, and I look at a piece of paper, fundamentally they might be very similar, but perception of value is very different.
Correct.
Right. And so that's really what we look at personal brand as: the promise of what value you bring, gets to purpose as the core, and then how others perceive that value and how you're able to grow that value and impact over time. So over your lifetime.
Fascinating. And the question that a lot of young people have asked me is, why is it important to invest in one's personal brand?
Because it's a choice, right? You have a brand, whether you like it or not. Stats say within the first, I think, 3 seconds of someone meeting you, they've kind of made up their mind about who you are. And the next couple seconds, they've changed their mind at least 7 times.
Wow.
So perception is happening on a consistent basis. Why? Because we're just inundated with so many messages. So in order for our brain to be able to filter, we have to put people and things in quadrants: valuable, not valuable, pay attention, don't pay attention. And so unless you're intentional about what your perception and value is, you're leaving it to chance. and you're leaving it to other people's experience, to stereotypes, to what they see as your first impression, right? So all of these things are shaping value, and people then will regard you as someone that they should be connected with and recognize and reward, or people that they would ignore. And so we just have to recognize it's happening, and we have a choice to be a part of creating that, or to react to whatever anyone else thinks.
Wonderful. And what are some of the factors that one needs to take into account when thinking of one's personal brand?
Yeah, so our personal brand formula we call ID3, which is our proprietary approach to how do you really unpack what is a personal brand. It starts, Ash, with identity. And I think a lot of us are victims of identity theft because, again, we let other people define who we are for ourselves, because we give up that opportunity. Why? Because the world is telling you who you should be. So identity being core is the fundamental part. So that's understanding your mission, understanding your vision, understanding your values, understanding what is your unique skill and experience. That's the bedrock. That's the foundation.
Correct.
The next I is image. So it's what people perceive. And I look at image as a mirror. It's really a reflection. Can I authentically reflect who I am to the world so they see the same thing? And that is the power of image. And the third is when you've mastered identity, image, it's influence. What's being said when you're not in the room? How do I expand my visibility and exposure and opportunity with people that I've never even met before? Ash, this brings us together. I've never met you before, but influence creates the opportunity for us to connect. And there's no better time than right now, with everything being so virtual, for you to expand your influence globally.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
And at what stage of a person's career should they start thinking of investing in their own brand?
I have a 5-year-old, and he's getting ready to start kindergarten on Monday.
Okay.
And I'm talking to him about who he is.
Okay.
I'm not affirming. It's hard as a parent, and this is the best example I can give because it's not a professional thing. It's hard as a parent to not just affirm your child based on their performance. Right. But I'm affirming him on who he is. You made a good choice. You stepped up and you were a leader. You supported your friend. Those are attributes and characteristics of being a good human.
Oh, wonderful.
Right. And so I think, even though I'm not saying to him, what is your personal brand? I'm saying to him, who are you? And I'm helping him discover that and begin to own it and recognize this is what makes me unique. So when he goes to school, so when we go in the corporate environment, so when we go in the community, or where people see us on the media, we're not limited to other people's definition of who they say we are. So for me, I had to, I mean, my parents did that for me. And ultimately, as I've grown up and become educated and understanding marketing, I understand that was really them helping me brand my market in the world. So that's what I'm aspiring to do as a parent for my child.
Wonderful. And Melissa, for people who are in the corporate world, is a behavioral change necessary before one starts investing in a personal brand?
A mindset is necessary. It's about how you perceive yourself. When we think about the voices that limit us, a lot of times in the corporate world, right? I work in the space of DE&I, developing talent. There's a lot of emphasis placed on the limitations from people in organizations, right? And are we equitable, and are we treating everyone with the same equity, and are we valuing everyone? But sometimes our harshest critic is the voice in between our two ears. It's not just what other people are saying, it's how we think about ourselves. So the opportunity is to really practice shifting. It's a hard thing, Ash, because we are a product of our environment, of our childhood, of our experiences. So it's very hard to change the conversation, the narrative in our own head. For me, that's been one of the challenges that I had. When I started the company, this is a very relevant story for this moment. When I started the company, I was in Cincinnati. I had a young lady who was my assistant and worked part-time with me. And I remember being in my living room and I was saying, and we had this motto, we're going to go global right after we go local.
Okay. Okay.
Meaning we didn't have any local clients, but we were already saying we're going global. And Ash, do you know, to this day, literally just yesterday, we launched our first global cohort of our program. I said that 16 years ago.
Incredible.
Why was I telling myself that? Because I had to change my mind around seeing myself small. I was seeing myself small in my own head. And I had to say, okay, Melissa, see yourself bigger, think bigger, be bigger, even though I was working at a desk in my living room and I had no clients. So now when we're doing the Brand Leadership Institute, we're in 15 countries.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? The voice at that time, being junior in my career and in entrepreneurship, my mindset had to shift, and that changed everything.
Before I ask you any more questions, tell me about this institute.
Yes, I'm so excited to tell you about it. So the Brand Leadership Institute is a 24-week leadership accelerator, and it is focused on solving the problem for corporations around the blind spot for women in leadership.
Okay.
We know that many women will move forward in their career and they make up a good portion of the workforce. However, women are mid-career 17 times more likely to quit their job. They're 11 times more likely to quit than their male counterpart. And yet companies have these big DE&I initiatives to have more women in senior leadership, but we can't go back to post-pandemic status quo. There's some things that had to change around how you develop, motivate, and ready women. And so I spent time building a community, but most importantly, a SaaS-based technology platform that would enable women to go through an experience that would help them address their blind spots and move forward with clarity, confidence, competence, and connections. And what we've seen, Ash, through this program, we've seen, over 33% promoted in 12 months. We've seen 80% retention of women going through this program. And we've seen, most importantly, women have graduated as MVPs. They have a better understanding of mission, vision, and purpose, and how to navigate their career and their life, because that's one of the biggest challenges we face as women, all the hats we're wearing. And so it's so exciting to see that work that started in that living room, that vision, materialize into, over 800 women going through this experience, the corporations that we're able to impact, and most importantly, the lives, not just of the women, because we also work with the male and female managers. So developing a culture in the organization that enables leaders to level up no matter where they are. So very excited about that, and very timely that we're having this conversation.
Absolutely. And, at the Brand Leadership Institute, what are some of the programs you run for a lot of the women to be able to get into leadership positions?
Yes. So the program itself is called the Brand Leadership Institute. All of our programs focused on women leadership are under the She-Suite. So the She-Suite Brand Leadership Institute is that 24-week leadership accelerator. It's focused on the mid-career woman. So our clients are corporations, larger enterprises who are looking to invest in a democratized coaching model. So it's scalable across the country, across regions, across functions. And we bring all of them together from multiple companies, countries, and regions together in this community forum. We also have an annual event called the She-Suite Summit. And all of this can be found at theshesuite.com. But we have an annual summit, which is a great way for us this year in 2022. We had about 1,000 attendees in 22 countries. And that is a great way for us to help empower women during Women's History Month. We have some coaching. We also have a magazine and a podcast. So we really are focused on what we call the She-Suite method, which is how do you help women lead across the stages and phases of their career and life journey.
Fascinating. Wonderful. Well, good luck with the Brand Leadership Institute.
Thank you so much.
Coming back now to Velvet Suite and personal branding, one of the questions that has often been asked of me is that if one starts to develop one's personal brand, will there be a conflict with my company's brand? What are your thoughts?
It's a great one. It's, one is I remember feeling that conflict. I believe we have evolved from where we were when I left my corporate job. Why? Because companies understand that having positive employee experiences only amplifies why people want to work for their company. So there used to be this restrictiveness, and I think people still have a self-imposed conflict. But I think that sharing your story on LinkedIn, talking about the work that you're doing at your company or how you're speaking on a specific topic at a conference that connects back to the work that you do, that drives back to the company, can be complementary. I also think companies are starting to recognize the value of well-being and people needing outlets. So having a hobby that has nothing to do with your job, dancing, farming, doing whatever those things are, I think is welcome. And I think the opportunity is much stronger than ever before. I think the rule of the game, no matter what, is transparency and understanding how you spend your time. Because that's the biggest challenge. Correct. Is how am I going to invest the time that's necessary to do my job, then also do all of these other things that I want to do.
Interesting. A couple of more questions on personal branding. What role does social media play to build a personal brand?
It's very important. It's very important because we live in a social media driven world, and people connect and learn about your story through the stories that they hear from others, what they see on their streams. So it is important to have that. I think more important for your own sanity and for your own time is to really take the time to define what you want your presence to be. Okay. And not feeling compelled to have to say something just because everyone else is saying something. But really being thoughtful about what is your message, who's your audience, why does what you say matter, and when do you need to speak, because there's a lot of wasted time on social media as well.
Correct.
So it is about just having a strategy, just like anything, to determine how do you want to best leverage this tool. It's a tool. It shouldn't take over your life. That's mine. So we have to understand how to work it.
I agree completely. And yet the question that a lot of people have is that there are so many social media platforms, all of them moving at the speed of nanoseconds. Right. Which one does one select?
Your audience. I mean, a fundamental principle of marketing is getting clear on who is your target audience. So, depending on who you're trying to reach, where are they? Right. And finding out where they are and then making that your priority place. Yeah, everyone's on all platforms, but really, where does your target audience spend most of their time? Where do they consume content that would be relevant to what you have to offer? And then how do you start to make your voice matter in that place, in that space? Wonderful.
My last question to you on branding, and then I have a couple of questions for you personally. America is a multicultural society, absolutely multicultural. And we all have different ways in which we talk about ourselves. My question to you is, does culture impact personal branding?
Absolutely. Culture impacts personal branding on two sides. It impacts who you are and how you show up based on your experience, your cultural toolbox, right? It also impacts how others perceive you based on their cultural context. And so it's so important to, I believe, overall have a global mindset,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't care where you sit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Virginia. You're in New Delhi.
Mm-hmm.
But whether I'm talking to you or I'm talking to a colleague, I'm talking to a client, I always have to think about how do they receive my message if I'm in their seat, right? Because even in the same quote unquote culture, I'm in Virginia. There's a difference I learned moving here. I wasn't here before 13 years ago, between Northern Virginia and the rest of Virginia, right? And so you have to understand the nuances and the differences. And part of how I learned that was asking questions, listening, observing, being inquisitive and curious. The way that we're growing our program globally, our program had to expand to be able to speak to all of these different markets and regions who have cultural nuances, rituals, experiences, totally different from ours. And so trying to be universal, I think, is about having that global mindset.
Fantastic. And my last question to you, Melissa, and this is for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation. Based on your vast experience as a professional manager, as an entrepreneur, as the first lady of personal branding, what would you say are 3 lessons you want our viewers and listeners to take away from our conversation?
3 lessons. I think, and not in any particular order, service is the rent you pay for living. It's not an original quote. It comes from a book from the founder of the Children's Defense Fund, Miriam Wright Edelman.
Yeah.
It's about what that means is that whatever we need out of life and want to contribute out of life, service is the way to get it.
Okay.
As a business leader, that has been my approach, is how do I serve well? And my business responded well, and it's grown. Number 2 is that impact takes time. And I like to think of myself as a farmer, which means I'm going to plant a lot of seeds, and my harvest won't necessarily come in the mail the next day, but it will come because I'm constantly planting seeds. If I'm constantly planting seeds, things are going to happen. And 3rd is your personal brand is essential to getting whatever you want out of your life.
Wonderful.
And the importance of that is understanding that how you see yourself is how others will see yourself.
Wonderful.
And so creating that impact is important to helping you really define where the course of your life and where you want to go. That's what my experience has been. Not that it's not been uneventful, or not that it's all gone the way I planned, but it has been that setting that intention and really having a vision is what's navigated me to my purpose. And that to me is the foundation.
Wonderful. Melissa, on that note, and your 3 wonderful lessons: service is the rent you pay for living, impact takes time, and personal brand is essential to get what you want. Thank you for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me about the Wellwith Suite, your 3 I's of personal branding, which is identity, image, and influence. Thank you for talking to me about your Brand Leadership Institute, about your amazing journey. Finally, thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you for having me on the show, Raj. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.